Hello and welcome, I'm Bootsy from thegamejar.com and I am here with the amazing Dean Hall of DayZ fame. How are you?
Good, thanks. Yeah, no, really good.
Good. So, where did you think you'd be a year ago?
Well, probably not here. Yeah, definitely. That wasn't the first thing that came to mind. Yeah.
And were you working on DayZ a year ago?
Not a year ago, no. So, but I guess some of the core technology that is used in DayZ I was working on. So, persistent worlds in Arma was something I'd been working at quite a long time. But in terms of adding zombies to that, I'd only started doing that from about December. Yeah.
Yeah, you've made quite an innovation there. Do you think that the persistent server technology is the strongest point of your mod?
Oh, well, I think it's one of the things. I don't think this DayZ is necessarily hugely innovative, but I guess the fact that it goes back to very basic, pure focus on game design, I think that's a real strength for it, because there's no like story or graphics to sort of pull it up, and I think that's why it's maybe resonated with people quite well, at least as a basic idea in Genesis. Yeah.
Certainly has resonated quite strongly with people because you hear all sorts of wacky stories. What would you say is your favourite at the moment?
Well, look, I saw that it's called Robot Zombie YouTube video before, which is like a robot chicken style look at a bunch of the DayZ videos out there, and it's a really great compilation for people who maybe don't have enough time to watch all the videos. And like probably one of my favourite videos is the guy is walking along and he can hear buzzing flies in the background, which means a dead body, and then he runs along to try and find the dead body. He goes through an archway and sees the dead body, and then this goat standing right over the body, and then the goat just turns its head like this and looks at the guy, and the video cuts, and it's just brilliant. I like wet my pants when I saw it. It's very funny.
Brilliant. You've got a lot of atmosphere in your game. I mean, just a goat looking at you. You see things in the distance, you think they're people, but nope, it's just a tree stump. Do you think the open world adds to the role-playing experience? Because you don't often meet people, but when you do, it can get very tense.
Yeah, well, I think the open world, if you just have the open world, then it's kind of just an open world. And DayZ leverages a lot on Arma. Like, DayZ is kind of Arma and then DayZ with a little bit on top. But that little bit that's on top is really important. So it's all that layered tension that you're talking about. So in Arma 2 normally, you're like, is that a person or a tree stump? And it has no real impact on you. But in DayZ it does, because of the consequence, and that's where that persistent world we were talking about before becomes really important, because your character lives through each play session, so it becomes very important to you and very personal. And then you have these layered tensions on top. Do I have enough food? Do I have enough water? You've only got a limited backpack space. So all these very simple mechanics, if you look at them individually, that don't seem much, because they all get put together and they create this layered tension. I think that's what adds what you're talking about there. It adds that to the player and the play experience. So it takes something that's very simple and makes it very personalized and internal.
Those small mechanics, I've noticed, I felt the game felt very similar to the Stalker games. Have you played a lot of those, and did you enjoy them?
I have a terrible confession to make. I've never actually played Stalker, but in my defense, I was really busy at the time. I think I was in the Air Force at the time, so I was super busy. But I have watched a lot of gameplay footage and read quite a bit about it. And obviously it focuses on that tension and atmosphere as well. And I think maybe something that DayZ does that Stalker does as well is not to necessarily too directly try and implement that environment and atmosphere. It's quite a subtle thing. In fact, with DayZ, it's probably even more subtle than Stalker, because it's just a mod. So a lot of that tension and atmosphere is going on in the player's head rather than overt. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that the DayZ is a very small slice on top of Arma 2, and obviously Arma 3 is coming out, and your standalone version. So how is Arma 3 and your standalone version working? Are they part of the same dev kit?
Well, the real virtuality engine, which is what Operation Flashpoint, then Arma and VBS2 and Arma 3 and that is based on, it's quite fluid. But what we're doing is we're branching from Arma 2. So And the reason for that is the most important part of DayZ is its multiplayer experience. So we want to make sure that we have the most robust and well-tested basis with which to build the standalone. So really DayZ is going to be built kind of on Armour 2.5. Like the visuals, all that kind of stuff can be tidied up reasonably easily and straightforward. But the netcode is really crucial. So we're pushing forward from Armour 2 because it's been very well tested, and we've got tremendous amount of feedback and stuff like that. So we're taking that approach, and I think it's quite a safe and cautious approach. So we've got big dreams with DayZ Standalone in the next, say, 6 months beyond when we initially release it. But for that initial standalone release, we're going to be quite conservative and really just focus on fixing bugs and tidying up the state of where it's at.
You said the standalone's going to be a lot bigger. How much haven't we seen so far?
Well, I think, again, in terms of that alpha release, it's going to be quite simple. So we're going to tidy up the bugs, deal with hacking, things like that. And in addition to that, we'll put enough new content and features in that people are happy to pay, the €15 or whatever for a standalone, so like a heavily discounted initial price. So we'll put a few new features in, like one thing that I'm really personally really into is putting in a simplified ragdoll system. It makes the animations a lot easier to deal with in terms of death. Like a lot of people notice at the moment, the zombies take a while after you shoot them to fall over, and it's really frustrating. But that's the way the queued animation systems work. So if we go to a ragdoll for death, it makes things a lot easier in that perspective. So that's an example of something quite simple that we can add to it that people see a value to. Most people are happy to pay a few dollars to have that kind of feature added to it. But once we release that standalone, we'll do like what Minecraft did. So each week or however long, we will iterate in and add new features. So from the point, say, towards the end of this year, when we release the standalone, for at least the next 6 months, we will very heavily, actively develop it, adding features. Then there'll be a feature close off, and we'll move into the beta and just tidy things up, and then we should be looking at the final release after that.
That sounds great. I'm really looking forward to it. So your player base, very unpredictable. But one thing I have noticed is that it tends to be groups of people playing people that you know or people you meet, or people that play Lone Wolf. And how do you intend to cater for these two different groups during the end part of the game?
Yeah, well, at the show here, we've got the 1.73 patch to the mod, which has a very basic initial implementation of dogs, just really to sort of feel out where it's going. So the dogs are introduced to be a tool that will be very effective for particularly Lone Wolf players. And I think the important thing is, and really with the development going forward, is to focus on providing players the tools to do stuff. So rather than really changing the core experience, we just want to add stuff around the edge of it. And it's really heartening to see the player created content like you watch. That's probably the most fun thing of the project, to see the amazing and crazy stuff that people do. Even, to be honest, some of the hackers have been really creative. Like I saw that guy going around using like a demon voice and stuff like that and doing crazy stuff. And like you have to look at it and go, wow, that's really creative and innovative. People are using this game in this really crazy way. So I think supporting this really unique way that people play the game is really important. So I'm not saying supporting hacking, but like supporting multiple different play styles and the way people play it. So Lone Wolf, playing it as a group, that sort of stuff. So the Lone Wolf will definitely do things like increasing a lot more of the survival elements, crafting, increasing the use and capability of the dogs. And then for the group style stuff, that's where we're looking at for the standalone more group dynamics. But they involve a lot of balancing issues. Like if we have group spawning, how do we still maintain disorientation? And it's a really might be a bit overpowered when compared with someone who's not in a group and they have to spawn on the coast. So we have to do a lot of thinking and testing. We have to try stuff out, get feedback from the users. And so the approach we'll take with the development is we'll sort of run 3 builds at the same time. We'll have an internal development build, we'll have an external testing build that people can choose, and an external stable. So there'll be 2 builds available to customers. If they want to, say, help us experiment and test and give feedback on how we've got group dynamics spawning, they'll be able to download the test build and try that. But if they just want a happy, nice, stable gameplay experience, then they can use the public stable build.
So your DayZ is a very popular mod, but the less popular mods, have you experienced many of those, and are there any features that you'd quite like to steal from them?
You mean in terms of the Armour community?
Yeah, in the Armour 2 modding community.
Yeah, well, look, the DayZ is born out of a very active, very intensive modding community, and I certainly wouldn't say that that DayZ is anywhere near, even close to being the best Armour 2 mod that's out there. It's the most popular, but that doesn't anywhere mean it's either technically or professionally the best mod that's out there. So you've got the big mods like Ace. Acre is obviously very popular as well. We'd love to do something like Acre and have radios in, but I think to get it to work in DayZ, Acre is very much focused on the simulation side of it, and it models what it does incredibly well. We need to balance many different tool sets required, so we'll probably have to go for a relatively simple radio mechanic, which we've already got scoped out, that won't go, unfortunately, into the same level of depth as Acre and that does, but we see that as being definitely something we want to add in. But yeah, I guess hopefully these other mods that are out there are getting some exposure from this experience as well. Like it's probably one of the coolest things about Armour 2 is just the amazing mods that are available. You've even got Project Reality, which is really popular as well.
Do you expect much modding of DayZ, the standalone?
Well, we faced a really difficult decision, and I know there was a couple of negative articles came out on my comments on this yesterday. So the initial approach we're taking with the standalone is that we are not going to allow modding or user-created content at all. That is pure and simple a reaction to the hacking and mod apping and that's going on with Armour and DayZ. Armour is a very trusting application. It doesn't really try and protect itself from any injection or anything like that, and that is because of what it was designed to do. But in an environment like DayZ, particularly when it's very PvP focused, you have to lock it down. So in response to that, we're going to open the mod right up. So allow the mod to be freely edited, developed, people to add their own islands like that Linger Island, run their own servers, run their own private hives. We're just going to totally open it up. And unfortunately, we have to lock the game down. So the idea is to try and have the mod developing as a really community experimental phase, and we can take good ideas out of the mod and put them in the game. But the game itself initially is going to have to be very locked down. Later on, we're talking about enabling it so you can have kind of a sandbox mode where you can add in other mods and hopefully drive a whole community around that. But to get the base game working properly, we have to kind of lock it. Yeah. Which is unfortunate, but you got to make those tough calls, and that's one that we've decided to do.
Certainly. Have you played much Linger Island?
No, I haven't. I must play it. Look, I guess this sometimes seems like mixed messages for people, because during the development of the mod, I was dead against single player or any other kind of modification to it. The reason for that was to get a very packaged, discreet message sent to the video gaming world and video gaming executives as to what DayZ was and why it was successful. And so we sent a very clear message out there as to what was working and what needed to be in the standalone. That message has been sent. We've achieved that. We've got the standalone version coming. So now we can open it up and say to people, add what you want to it. Take it where you think it can go. Because we've sent that clear message.
Brilliant. Your zombies, I must say, are some of the creepiest I've encountered. Well, I haven't played many zombie games, but certainly they scare the crap out of me when you're crawling through the grass.
True, yeah.
Definitely. Just walk straight past you. Very, very creepy. You are developing an infection model to show how they go from infected to really gross. How does that work?
Yeah, well, I guess I'll start by saying, because I'm a huge horror fan, but I like really, literally terrifying stuff. So for me, the zombies still feel a bit weak as to how I'd want them. Luckily, we had really good community support. A guy from the community made the current zombie textures. We had a lot of help by a guy, Michael Manning, to get the zombie sounds, which I really like the zombie sounds. So he put a lot of work into that. One element I wanted to go forward on was what you said about the zombie infection, the zombie life cycle. So my brother in New Zealand is a virologist, which is for the New Zealand equivalent of the CDC, and so I'm getting him involved to help develop sort of a hard science fiction background behind the zombie infection, how it affects humans, and having it how it affects the body as to if they get lots of food, then they'll continue to be very mobile. If they don't, they'll be less. And so we're going to model that, and I think that hopefully will add, that horror and that tension to it, in a not realistic but an authentic way. And that's what I hope, because I would love the zombies to be more real in a sense, because I think the horror in DayZ comes from the feeling in your brain that it's an authentic situation. We can't achieve realism, but I think we can achieve a level of believability with the player.
And how will these new zombies interact with the player? Will the player be infected, or will he just die?
Well, the narrative we've gone with is that you are kind of the survivor of the infection. So with any infection, you get a number of people who are, for whatever reason, immune to the infection. So the idea is that many people over the world were killed by the infection. There was a small percentage whose brains didn't quite, whose brains got cooked, but didn't die. And they are the ones who are zombies. And then there's a very small percentage of the population who's a survivor, and you are that survivor. So there's a couple of reasons that we went down that track. It's mainly pragmatic. So if we were to put the players in as zombies, we would have to deal with a whole bunch of animation and switching issues, add some different melee type mechanics, and a whole bunch of issues we'd have to deal with. Then we'd have to deal with the fact that a player who is a zombie will not run around and just moan and be weird like a zombie. They might go do stuff like dance and wiggle side to side and do salute and do crazy stuff like that. So we wanted to focus the gameplay experience. There's a lot of games that do many other things very well, like Project Zomboid I think really nails the single player kind of experience. So we want to focus on why DayZ is cool and not get distracted with other things. So I think we'll be definitely leaving the players becoming zombie thing to the side.
And because you have lots of players camping in the woods, I've seen one on the internet where people make a death ring and they make people fight in it.
Yeah.
That one's great. Do you see people, the zombies walking through the woods, zombie hordes just stumbling through the landscape?
Yeah, well, I can't remember where I saw it. It was either on the DayZ forums or Reddit, but someone was... Actually, I think it was when I did the IAMA or whatever on Reddit, someone was asking about these zombie hordes. It gets asked quite a lot. And, I looked at it the other day, and it's definitely something that's on the cards, not a high priority, but it's on the cards for the standalone, is to look at doing those kind of moving hordes type things, because obviously it's a cool mechanic that people really enjoyed from The Walking Dead, and I think it's an interesting... narrative element to, look at with the infection as well and see how that ties in. So I think it's a definite possibility. We want to add a bit more depth to the world, and that is one way that we can do that, because it could be quite a chilling and scary thing.
If you weren't using zombies, what would you use?
Well, I've often joked that, this scenario is really more about disaster than it is about zombies. So you could use like peak oil, but it wouldn't be anywhere near as exciting. So I'm not suggesting that I do it without peak oil. I really enjoy aliens. I really am excited about the new XCOM game that's coming out, because XCOM is one of my favorite games of... Well, not one, it is my favourite game of all time. And so I'd actually been working on a mod for Arma I was telling Marek, the CEO, before, that was basically XCOM in first person in Arma 2. But there's probably not much point in doing that mod now. But yeah, I always thought that was pretty cool.
And do you have any other game ideas on the horizon? I know you've got a lot of work to do, but do you see yourself moving on to fresh pastures?
Yeah, well, everyone's got a lot of ideas. I'm really into tycoon games. Like, I really like tycoon games, so I'd love to, but I like authenticity, so I want a really authentic, something you could jump in. Like, Airport Tycoon was a game I always really enjoyed, so I would love to be able to, when you're managing the airport, actually get down inside a vehicle and drive it around, and that kind of stuff I think would be cool. But next year I'm actually going to go climb Everest in April and May next year, and I'd really like to do some kind of game maybe based on that, so I'm going to see if I can get some cool ideas from that.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Dean Hall, for joining us. Thanks for talking about DayZ. You've been brilliant.
Cool, thanks very much.
You're welcome. Thanks to you guys. See us on thegamejar.com. We're at thegamejar on Twitter, and I will see you later. Goodbye.